the humanist report. This is apparently a big thing that's happening. Apparently, we are looking at an attempt to undermine the election process in the United States by the Trump administration. This video is from 5 days ago, but it seems that it's still pretty relevant. Estelle says, wealthy people really like to believe that their success comes from their superior constitution. Yeah, they feel like they have superior genes, superior intellect, and they are like the Ubermensch, and it would benefit humanity if they spread their super genes everywhere, which is just ludicrous and sounds like a plot of an anime. Unironically sounds like some weird plot of an anime, okay? It feels like something that you would read in fiction. Oh, this biggest child trafficker in human history that knows all the powerful politicians, artists, scientists, movie makers, plans to create a new race of superhumans by spreading his DNA, by impregnating many, many women. You tell me that doesn't feel like some fictional scenario. But apparently, reality is far weirder than any fiction that you could come up with. Okay, let's look at the FBI thing, because Epstein's dead and the people that are trying to do this are very much alive and active.
This should have people across the country absolutely shook. This is a huge deal. This is an FBI raid on the Fulton County Elections Office.
We don't know where they're being taken. We don't know what's going to happen to them. So we can no longer, and I can no longer, as chair of this board, satisfy not only the citizens of Atlanta, but the citizens of the world, that those ballots are still secure. So that is a major concern that I have right now.
Fulton County is right now the target, the only county right now fighting over an election that already happened, but it is coming to a place near you. This is the beginning of the chaos of 2026 that is about to ensue.
Excellent.
Wednesday's FBI raid on an election center in Fulton County, Georgia, is a chilling reminder that the Trump regime is serious about stealing the upcoming election. And even though it feels
And the other, stealing the upcoming election, but do you mean the midterms, right? Are we talking about the midterms? Because there's also the looming topic of Trump floating around the idea of just having a third term, should he live long enough. He just wants to keep being president forever.
hyperbolic and downright conspiratorial to say that. It's not. As hard as it may be to digest the fact that it's come to this, it's come to this. Yeah. We need to believe our lying eyes.
Well, some more negative people, some more doomer people say that the United States might not even have a midterms to speak of. That, the midterms might just be a fiction, which this kind of thing certainly adds credence to the theory.
Is everything that he's doing in Fulton County, which has long been at the center of his lies about the 2020 election, is all a not so subtle attempt to create the pretext to completely subvert November's election. Nobody knows what the rationale will be, but now that they've seized ballots from local officials, all they have to do is lie and say that they finally have definitive evidence of fraud and use that as a justification.
I mean, that is what Trump actually said numerous times recently, that they will start prosecution, that they have evidence of the 2020 election being stolen, that they have definitive proof, and that they will be presenting that evidence soon. I remember there was, I don't remember on what occasion did he say it. He always just, maybe it was when he was talking about Ukraine and that it was Biden's, that Ukraine is Biden's war, and that if he would have been president, the war would have never happened, and that the election was stolen. And I believe that is when he said that he has evidence now that it was stolen and that he will be presenting the evidence. And I assume this FBI raid is part of the effort to procure such evidence, to manufacture such evidence. It's all coming together, I guess, since Trump did announce that he had evidence of fraud.
to either take over local elections in other counties that are supposedly at risk of fraud or disenfranchise voters concentrated in precincts where they claim they found fraud. They could even say that they found evidence that a foreign entity helped steal the election for Democrats in 2020. I think that's also a possibility due to the bizarre presence of Tulsi Gabbard at the raid.
Guess who showed up at this FBI raid? Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
Why? Why did she?
Gabbard has nothing to do with election security. Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, but now it's actually par for the course that people that have nothing to do with their job description take part in completely different things, like ICE. ICE is not police, and yet, I actually, speaking of elections, by the way, to bolster this point, apparently there is reports that ICE will be placed as guards of election booths. ICE will be taking care, ICE will be utilized in elections. If that is not chilling, then I don't know what is. What are the implications of ICE being used as groups to be present at the election polls? The undesirables will be turned away as possible immigrants, illegals. Will they be detained and unable to vote? Well, what is like it's really terrifying when I heard that apparently ICE will be used. I wonder if it made its way to any official news. ICE to guard election booths. I wonder if there's any. Trump ally threatens to surround election polls with ICE. There you go. There you have it. There you go. 6 hours ago, I was right. We will be. I know it's interjecting. I know I'm entering a different subject during a subject. You know, I'm sort of jumping around, but it is related. An FBI raid to election sort of centers and ICE being deployed to guard election. I feel like it's not unrelated. Okay, it's not completely random what I'm doing here.
I mean, imagine, you know, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and
yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I was thinking, that if you're basically not white, not just Hispanic, you're just not white and a voter, you're going to be intimidated by ICE being present at the polls because who knows what they will do to you. Yeah, exactly. It is intimidation. And it's definitely related to that FBI raid, in my opinion.
off to a detention center, you know, with hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy.
So Mikey Smith in the Mirror, Kate Ferguson from The Sun on Sunday, and of course Sarah Baxter in the United States. And Sarah, let's look at another story which is sort of making mileage where you are. It is the idea.
Insane. It's insanity that this kind of thing can be done. ICE has nothing to do with policing. ICE has nothing to do with securing elections. ICE's job is to investigate whether or not someone is an undocumented immigrant. That is it. They're just, on paper, they're just glorified border guards. That's it. There is the fact that they're being utilized for all this is just very disconcerting, to put it mildly.
Will his MAGA team find a way to tilt the odds in the American election? Is it about preserving the integrity of elections or about doing the opposite?
It's about the opposite. It's very transparent. You don't have to be a brilliant thinker to realize that it's the opposite. You don't have to be a genius to realize that.
Taking the integrity away from elections. Now, the MAGA leading light, who has been an advisor, big advisor to Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, he's been addressing this in the context of the ICE agents who are in America being accused of brutal tactics against suspects.
Well, not just accused; they murdered citizens. The actions of ICE at this point go far beyond just being accused of things. It's now about action. Well documented action, mind you.
And all of this, they're very unpopular with one side of the argument, to put it mildly. He said this.
You're damn right. We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can watch.
I've seen this clip. I've seen this, and this is why I wanted to make it part of the broader segment about the Trump administration undermining the upcoming elections.
And cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen.
There you go. And also perpetuating the conspiracy theory that in 2020 the election was stolen.
Well, that was pretty clear, wasn't it, Sarah Baxter?
It was very clear, wasn't it?
Agents surrounding the polls. And how's that gone down?
Well, just imagine what it would be like. We had masked, armed men surrounding British polling stations. I mean, this is the situation that Americans might have to confront.
Yeah, I'd be nervous. I'm going to be honest. If I were a person of color, I'd be nervous about going to the poll. And there are already a lot of things being done to make it as hard as possible for certain groups to vote, mind you.
And, whether
the
or
road
not,
to voting is already made very steep to certain groups of people in the United States.
ICE is used to try and prevent people with perfect legal right to be in the US and vote, i.e. US citizens, from actually exercising their democratic rights. I mean, imagine, you're a Hispanic voter, you're afraid you'll suddenly be put into a van and carted off to a detention center.
Yeah, and not allowed to vote, basically taking away your rights as citizen.
With hope to prove your status later kind of thing when the ballots have closed. I mean, this is what Steve Bannon is dreaming about, and I hope it's still fantasy. The other dangerous thing, there are two other dangerous things that Donald Trump has actually been doing. One, he's been speaking about nationalizing the elections. Now, I remember in the middle of the 2020 election when he said, stop the count in the middle of the night.
What does that mean, nationalizing the elections? I am not sure what that means. Estelle says, married women who changed their last name will have to re-register before voting using their birth certificate if the measure passes.
And he really wanted goons to go in and seize voting ballot boxes from inner city areas in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, and so forth. This is what he now really wants to be able to do as well. Not just prevent people from having access to the polls who have the right to vote, but maybe seizing ballot boxes later to do the count themselves by people friendly to MAGA. Well,
of course. That feels very legitimate, that seems perfect to me, of course.
That sound to you? And thirdly, he recently had Tulsi Gabbard, his director of national intelligence, who's supposed to focus on foreign threats.
There you go. Partake in a raid, on a poll, on office.
Domestic ones. Seizing alongside officials who seized records from the 2020 vote in Georgia. That Georgia vote has been relitigated millions of times, hand counted and all the rest.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do with those seized votes. I wonder what they're going to do. I wonder what narrative is going to be spanned. I wonder what evidence will be manufactured from this. I wonder, especially in light of Trump announcing that he has evidence of the 2020 election being stolen.
No fraud has been found, but Tulsi Gabbard seems to be determined to find it. It's very, very...
And you know what? They might just find it. If they really have the determination, they will find it. They will find something.
Disturbing.
And when the president talks about federalizing elections, the elections are in the Constitution. They are the province of states of the Union, not the federal government. What is the fear that might mean? I guess one of the things on the list is going to be about turning up on the day and casting a vote in person and not by mail.
That's right. I mean, Donald Trump hates mail-in ballots. He thinks that enables...
Many countries have mail voting, by the way. Many countries. And it's not a problem.
People who are friendly to the Democrats to vote and gain access to the polls. There are certain things...
everybody should have access to the polls, okay? Everybody who can vote should have access to... What is this idea that certain people should not have access to the polls? Not a very good idea in a democratic country, supposedly.
do to tighten up, like voter ID, etc.
Yeah.
Is mostly used anyway, but there are a few places where it isn't. But he's going way beyond that, and basically, he's pretty much said in advance of every election, if it doesn't go his way, it's because of fraud.
Yeah, of course. Of course he's going to say that.
And he's now insisting he won the 2024 election by a landslide, which he didn't. And, the whole thing is just would be palpably absurd if it wasn't so dangerous.
What is the gain to the president in reopening the 2020 election and sending...
That's a silly question. He can, first of all, do the easiest thing to answer this to this question is that he can start prosecuting people who he can deem as criminals who stole the election. That he has evidence of malpractice, of crime being committed, and then he can prosecute his political enemies for the crime of stealing the election. That's one thing that he can do with this, for one.
Into Georgia to look at the ballots that were cast in that election.
He can punish those who have rigged the election.
I suppose it's part of the process of making the case that the election system can't be trusted and needs to be taken over by the federal government, and that's
that as well. But also the punishment, the legal punishment of those who he will see as those who have done it.
Well, exactly so. This is actually part of throwing doubt again on that result in 2024. Although the joke is, Donald Trump was the president in 2020.
By the way, before the results came in, Trump was already preparing to declare that the 2024 elections were rigged as well. If anybody remembers that, he was already setting the stage for the declaration that there was foul play in the 2024 elections as well. But once the results came in favorable to him, he said, no, it was all good. Actually, the whole process was perfectly fine. But he was actually sowing the seeds for the preparation of announcing that it was not okay, that it was completely rigged and there was foul play involved. He was definitely preparing himself for that.
2020, when he claims the vote was rigged, Joe Biden was the president in 2024 and lost. The Democrats then lost. If they were good at rigging elections, you'd think they'd have won the 2024 election.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, when Trump lost, he was president, and somehow under his watch, the elections were rigged. So make it make sense.
Donald Trump won it. But no, he definitely wants to set the ground for querying any bad result in the midterm elections and, quite honestly, probably challenging it. So that if he can throw enough doubt, if it's a close run thing and he's about to lose the House of Representatives, he can actually stop the count, so to speak, the thing he tried to do before, seize ballot boxes, say we're federalizing them, we're taking this out of the hands of...
and then declare, oh, we won. Thank you.
States who can't be trusted, and then it will go to the courts. Now, it's definitely unconstitutional to behave as he's threatening to do.
But he does not care about the Constitution, so that's not even an argument at this point.
The Supreme Court, with a heavy Republican majority, agree? Who knows? Republicans used to be in favor of states' rights, but now seem to adopt the position that they're in favor of whatever Donald Trump says.
I'm just trying to imagine the implications of seizing voting machines on the night of an election. I mean, it barely bears thinking about. Anyway, Mikey, you are such a close America watcher. What are you thinking now?
Well, I mean, I think my thoughts about the possibility of elections in America in the near future, and they are that I have long said that the 2028 election, I'd be amazed if it takes place, and the 2026 midterm elections will be extremely compromised. People have been warning about this for a while, and they've been suggesting... Yeah,
there are very serious steps being taken to compromising the upcoming elections.
As is now doesn't seem unreasonable that what's been happening in Minnesota and in other Democrat-run states where ICE have been surged on the face of it, deal with illegal immigrants, but these are places that don't have a high level of immigration, let alone illegal immigration. The suggestion is they've been sent there as a dry run to start the intimidation of people and to make people scared of ICE so that they can be deployed at polling stations during the midterms as an intimidation tactic. And it's simply... The suggestion is that they don't want people to turn up because they're afraid that they'll get bundled into a van and taken to a torture prison in El Salvador.
I mean, this is not exactly an illegitimate fear considering how ICE has been behaving. It is absolutely not an illegitimate fear. I find this fear to be quite legitimate, in fact.
Which is not, at this point, something that events this week, things that both the president and Steve Bannon, who always says the quiet part out loud, none of that has been overtaken by what's happened this week. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Sarah? I've seen, like everyone else, those images of ICE out on the street, which is terrifying. I think they're really terrifying to a British audience who are not used to seeing, you know, so-called like immigration enforcement officers, cops being so heavily armed. I mean, they're absolutely terrifying. They look like they're at the front line of Ukraine or some kind of war zone. But obviously there has been a big backlash in America to that, and I just
and people have died, and probably people will continue dying.
Does it look like we're going to see Trump particularly row back more in terms of the deploying of ICE?
No, I don't think so. When asked directly if ICE is being too violent, if ICE is deploying too brutal tactics, Trump's response was that ICE is not doing enough. So if anything, Trump would love to increase the presence of ICE if he could have his way, not go back.
Or will they be used in this tactic? So,
he would love to increase actually the use of ICE, in my opinion.
The backlash been so big that he's going to have to really scale them back.
I don't think he will personally, but
you answer that, Sarah. I just want to play you this. This is the so-called border czar, Tom Homan. He describes himself in that way as border czar, and he announced the withdrawal of 700 ICE agents from the epicenter of this controversy, now Minnesota. Have a listen.
We have made significant progress under the direction of President Trump, working with state and local officials here in Minnesota. We currently have an unprecedented number of counties communicating with us now and allowing ICE to take custody of illegal aliens before they hit the street.
This does not actually mean anything. That pulling them back in this particular instance does not mean a scaling back of the use of ICE overall. Historically, when tyrants met pushback, they would scale back on their action and they're slowly introducing the measure, but worse. Like the biggest historical example of that would be the collectivization in the USSR, where Stalin first introduced the collectivization. The Ukrainian farmers and many other farmers protested, pushed back in a very aggressive way, and Stalin was actually forced to scale back on the thing, to walk away and say, we are too full from our success. We have succeeded so much with this collectivization thing that we actually have to stop it for a bit. And then he stopped for a bit. And then through certain coercion tactics, through certain policies, he started reintroducing the collectivization slowly, like boiling a frog. And before anybody knew it, it was back worse than before. So just because agents are being pulled back or are planned to be pulled back from this particular hot situation where there's huge pushback does not indicate that Trump plans to scale back on the use of ICE overall. It does not follow that. If that makes sense.
The state prisons already cooperate with ICE on this coordinated transfer of custody, and we thank them for that partnership, and we plan to do more with them. Given this increase in unprecedented collaboration, and as a result of the need for less law enforcement officers to do this work in a safer environment, I have announced effective immediately, we will draw down 700 people effective today, 700 law enforcement personnel.
So, Sarah, what's going on? What is going on here? Is there more cooperation between state and local law enforcement and authorities and the federal government and the...
I feel like it's more damage control, to be honest, considering the pushback from the populace. But
federal agents of ICE?
I'm a bit more cynical. I'm a bit more jaded when it comes to these things.
What you're witnessing is a climb down. America is still a democracy, and people power is behind this. Tom Honan has basically said that ICE is going to revert to its mission of going after the worst of the worst, i.e. criminals who are in the US illegally and deported. There's quite a bit of support for deporting them. What there wasn't is just going and chasing, arresting kids, chasing their parents, making people hide, comparisons.
Using children as bait to supposedly lure out undocumented immigrants. That's been done. Using children as bait to catch their parents.
Anne Frank in her attic, having to hide because they're afraid of getting snatched when ICE is in the neighborhood. But you know what? 700 agents are being withdrawn. 2,000 are going to remain in Minneapolis.
There you go.
And as Mike said, Minneapolis is not a center of huge number of illegal immigrants. So this is very much a bid to take over Democratic-run cities. And yes, there is going to be more cooperation with Tom Honan if he's serious about just going after the worst of the worst. But it also shows that if, Trump's always testing what he can get away with. We saw that magnified a zillion times on January the 6th, 2021, when the storming of the Capitol. And at that time, there was lots of talk then. He was being advised by certain people, why don't you use the Insurrection Act? Why don't you, stop the vote, seize ballot boxes, etc. He didn't have the nerve to do it then, and he won't have the nerve to do it in future if there's sufficient resistance. Will there be? Let's see.
Well, that gets you back to your point.
There has to be resistance,
Mikey, where you're saying you don't expect to see a general election in 2028. Now that's the stuff of Netflix drama. It is difficult to imagine, but you do believe that's...
You know what? Anything's possible. Anything's possible in the world that we're currently living in. I would not discount anything. Anything that sounds insane, we have to accept that it's a possibility at this point. We should not just discount anything. We should prepare ourselves. We should steel ourselves to rather to push back against it rather than just dismiss it happening out of hand, in my opinion.
Maybe the destination?
I mean, it's difficult to imagine, but not if you look back at what Donald Trump tried to do last time round. Last time he lost an election, he refused to accept the result. I would be stunned if he allows an election to take place now, because he would have to leave office anyway, and I think he has no intention of leaving office at the end of his term.
I think so.
Okay.
I'm just kind of open-jawed, really. Like, I don't know. I don't actually know what to say to that. I don't know if I have an opinion on how likely that is. Certainly, if that were the case, then that would be jaw-dropping. But I'm afraid I don't.
But
I'm afraid I've supported this view for a long time, that there'll be some sort of incident that means that Donald Trump, invokes some kind of emergency powers around the time when he's supposed to be leaving office. That means that he somehow doesn't, or that he postpones.
I believe that. I definitely believe that's a possibility. And I think people should be ready to push back against it.
I don't think he's going to try and stand for a constitution-breaking third term, although Steve Bannon, who, by the way, is in the...
Who knows? I would not put it past Donald Trump either. I would not completely dismiss the possibility that he might actually want to serve a third term.
Files, but is acting like he's got nothing to hide. Pache, my point earlier. I don't think he's going...
Especially since he's been joking about it already. Trump has been joking about his third term on several occasions.
To
quote unquote joking.
Actually try and run again for an unconstitutional third term. I think he'll find a way to delay things.
Yeah, and again, I'll just imagine the way that will play in the streets, the cities, and the states of the United States, of the Union. The uproar, which you say has driven the federal government to step back, to retreat over the deployment of ICE officers in Minneapolis. It would be a tea party compared to an operation, the reaction to an operation like that.
Yes, so that's why it comes down to what I was saying before, that people need to be aware of the fact that Trump is constantly testing people's resistance. And
there should be always resistance. People should be ready to resist.
That with every step he takes, people, he tries a bit harder. Now he's stepping back a little bit. He even said a little bit, not that much, in Minneapolis. He used the word a bit.
Yeah.
He tends to step back, try again. We've seen this with Greenland as well. Has he really given up his ambitions for it?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We don't know, but he did back down in the face of concerted pressure. He is capable of changing his mind and backing down. So it's worth calling out.
I don't think it's a matter of him changing his mind. I think that it's a matter of him being forced to take certain actions, whether he likes it or not. It's not a matter of him changing his mind on things, I don't think.
What we think he's up to.
And how much is this conversation a part of the national conversation where you are in the United States? I mean, I see it online. I see activists, I see thinkers, I see
people like Trump are not to be persuaded to change their mind. He has to be put in a position where he has to take certain actions, whether he likes it or not. He has to respect other places' sovereignty, whether he likes it or not. And it should not be about him gracefully just changing his mind.
Is on the, as it were, the center left of American politics, just airing these very thoughts. How far is it there in the conversation you see on the networks every day?
Well, not as much as, maybe in Britain in some ways. But on the other hand, let's think about those No Kings protests that took place last autumn. That brought out hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of major cities and actually small communities as well, all over the United States. So, there is vigilance about preserving the American Constitution, preserving American democracy.
As there should be.
I think, I still have a great faith in the American people, in their ability to
I have some faith.
Do the right thing and choose the right thing. And in the end, I think this will limit the extent of Trump's ambition. But he feels unstoppable.
All right. Let's continue watching this about the raid.
Abbott has even been in charge of dismantling what was called the Foreign Malign Influence Center to try to make sure foreign countries don't interfere.
So ballots being seized in Georgia.
In our elections. This complete
Hello, Emily, yes.
Trump loyalist somehow popping up on an FBI raid. What the heck was she doing?
Great question. I wouldn't put it past them to coerce Maduro into signing some confession about Venezuelan interference in the 2020 election as part of a plea deal between him and the feds, because Sidney Powell, one of his attorneys, who pled guilty, by the way, to election interference herself in Georgia and defended herself by saying no reasonable person would take her claims about the 2020 election as fact, said that Dominion voting machines were part of an international election rigging conspiracy.
Of course.
Involving communist money from countries.
There you go. This is going to be the line now.
Including Venezuela and Cuba. And when you also take into account the fact that Trump is planning a legal regime change in Cuba as well by the end.
Yeah, I can, but let's go through this.
Of the year, at least according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, he can now boldly say that his intelligence director has concluded that foreign actors did indeed steal the 2020 election. And leaders of said culpable countries that he's kidnapped are willing to testify on his behalf. And in order to safeguard elections, the federal government will now be taking control of all elections going forward, seeing as how it's now a matter of national security.
Yeah.
This is obviously conjecture. I don't actually know what the lie is going to be that they go with, but we do know that they will most definitely lie. As law professor Rick Haze put it in a comment to ProPublica, the idea that federal officials would seize ballots in an attempt to prove fraud is especially dangerous in this context when we know there is no fraud because the Georgia's 2020 election has been extensively counted, recounted, and
in all those places that Trump challenged, it has been checked, and it has been Trump's claim has been refuted time and time again, which is why he never won a single court case when he tried to challenge the results of the election.
investigated. And we can say with certainty that this is the case because all 60, yes, 60 of Trump's election fraud cases were dismissed, including by judges that he appointed. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure that they would have loved to help him rat fuck that election, but you have to at least give them some evidence so that way they have a defense in the event they're prosecuted for breaking the law for you. But they had nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. They've privately admitted that their fake electors were fraudulent, so Trump was lying and he knew he was lying. And even though Trump's fixation on the 2020 election might seem pathetic and petulant at face value, because it is, obviously, we shouldn't just naively assume that he's only whining or sympathy farming, because it's so much more nefarious than that. He's deliberately invoking that election to raise doubts about future elections.
And he is also trying to persecute those responsible for rigging the elections. That is also part of it. He openly said it very recently.
To give the regime legitimacy that they need to steal the next one. And I think that John Ossoff explained this well and explained why they're talking about Georgia and why it's so crucial to the regime for this effort.
His conspiracy theories about the 2020 election have been based in Georgia from the very start. Georgia is where he called the Secretary of State and said, find me the votes that he needed to win in a state he had lost. So much of the big lie that led to the January 6th sacking of the United States Capitol, that had a mob seeking the Speaker of the House and the Vice President to lynch them, originated in his lies about the state of Georgia. And here he has the FBI, which there are so many hardworking, diligent public servants in FBI field offices all across the country, but its headquarters now in the thrall of these political appointees, Kash Patel and Bongino and this guy from Missouri in the deputy role, who are partisan political actors, raiding this election office in Georgia.
The seeds are being sown to do some foul play during the midterms, as well as to prosecute political enemies.
Seizing all of this information, all of these records, taking it who knows where, chain of custody now broken. And here's the thing. This is a shot across the bow at the midterm elections. He tried to steal power when he lost it in 2020. We have to be prepared for all kinds of schemes and shenanigans. We have to be prepared for him to try to deprive people of their voting rights.
And he's exactly right. They're going to try to do it. It's just a matter of them getting their ducks in a row to make sure that they can actually pull it off.
And using ICE is going to one of the ways to do that, to turn people away, or to just, as someone has mentioned, to drive people away to a detention center so that they cannot vote.
This time. And again, I want to stress that I don't know how they're going to try to do it, but I can assure you that they're not doing all of this for nothing. Remember, Dominion voting machines, also at the center of Trump's big lie, was sold to a company named Liberty Vote, run by a former GOP election official. Earlier this month, Trump actually admitted that he regrets not seizing voting machines in 2020. So now that Dominion is owned by an ally, whether or not Trump will even have to seize voting machines if he wants to is an open question, because their new leadership might just hand them over willingly. But let's not forget that Pam Bondi was basically trying to extort Minnesota by saying ICE would draw down in Minneapolis if the state handed over their voter roll data so the Justice Department could, quote, help them, quote, clean rolls of ineligible voters, which is not their fucking job, by the way. And shortly before that, we learned about this from Politico.
Where have I heard this before? It's not their job. It's not their job about people that are sent by Trump.
Quote, 2 members of Elon Musk's Doge team working at the Social Security Administration were secretly in touch with an advocacy group seeking to overturn election results in certain states, and once signed an agreement that may have involved using Social Security data to match state voter rolls. But they won't have to worry about stealing our personal data from every state, because as this map from Newsweek illustrates, plenty of states have already made it easy enough for them by just volunteering that information to the federal government.
Of course.
And states that are refusing to hand that information over are being sued by the government, so that way they're forced to hand it over. And in addition to all of this, the Trump regime might get another assist from the Supreme Court soon, because if they actually deal the final death blow to the Voting Rights Act by striking down Section 2, which would take us back to the Jim Crow status quo, by the way, Republicans would be able to legally disenfranchise black and brown voters again. And it would net them nearly 200 additional seats across 10 states in the South and 19 more at the federal level, according to a 2024 analysis.
Make America great again.
By Fair Fight Action and Black Voters Matter Fund. So the Trump regime is carefully cultivating conditions for the complete subversion of our elections before our very eyes, and that should obviously concern everyone. You're not going to violate...
Yeah, it does concern me, definitely.
...the Constitution with a federal takeover of elections if you're not planning to rig said elections. And at this point in time, I feel like sunken cost fallacy indicates that Trump is indeed going to go as far as he needs to go in order to ensure that the election is rigged, because he's broken so many laws.
If you're in the US, I'd be more alarmed than I am. And I am alarmed, even though I'm on the other side of the globe.
If he ever is out of power, he's going to have to fear prosecution for the rest of his life. So in order to ensure that never happens, he's going to do what he needs to do to stay in power. And if that means breaking even more laws, I don't think that that's beneath him. And this tin pot dictator is going to do that because he's admitted that he doesn't want there to be an election. In a recent interview,
the president
tacitly admitted that Republicans...
The president expressed frustration that his Republican Party could lose control of the U.S. House of Representatives or the Senate in his year's midterm election, citing historical trends that have seen the party in power lose seats in the second year of a presidency. It's some deep psychological thing, but when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms, Trump said. He boasted that he had accomplished so much that when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. Fuck me.
We're going to lose the midterms, and concluded, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. So never mind a free and fair election. He doesn't even think that...
Yeah, there should not be one in the first place. Maybe he thinks that we've accomplished so much. He has accomplished so much as a president that maybe there should not be a presidential election anymore. Maybe Trump should be president for life because he has accomplished so much.
We should have one for the sake of political theater, when even the most totalitarian regimes in the world hold fake elections at a minimum, but he doesn't even think...
like Putin. Putin holds those very fake elections.
That the charade is necessary because he doesn't even want to pretend that he has anything but absolute control. And his comment was predictably dismissed as a joke once again. And when Caroline Livet was confronted about how fucked up it is that he said that, she basically just dismissed it out of hand.
You said that he was joking about canceling the elections, but Americans for generations have fought and died for democracy, for this democracy. Are you saying that the president finds the idea of canceling elections funny?
Yep.
Andrew, were you in the room? No, you weren't. I was in the room. I heard the conversation, and only someone like you would take that so seriously and pose it as a question in that way.
Oh, you don't like that he said that? Well, fuck you. Next question.
True. That is exactly what happened.
Like, they're not even bothering to hide the contempt that they have for the Constitution. And after that, President Neck Pussy himself talked about running for an illegal third term again.
I think we have the best poll numbers we've ever had. But think of it, if I were to run again,
If I run again.
Actually, fuckface, you have the worst poll numbers you've ever had. And I get that reality isn't really your forte, but that doesn't mean that you get to dictate the truth for the rest of us. Like, you might be a dictator, but you can't dictate reality for those of us with eyes who live in this plane of existence. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a stretch to say that there's a non-zero chance that the November election is not going to be free and fair. The only question is whether or not...
What the people will do about it. That is my question.
They've done enough to sufficiently rig it to the point where they'll be able to successfully keep Democrats out of power.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that question, nor can I tell you how they're going to try to do it exactly, but it's obvious that they are going to try to do it. So be on the lookout for that, because the series finale of America might air a lot sooner than a lot of us expected.
There we have it. It's a tense situation. We have an announcement that ICE agents will be at the polls. Georgia has seen a seizure of ballots. We'll see. We'll see what will happen at the midterms. I suggest you stay vigilant. If you're not white, definitely take an ID with you. Definitely take a document with you. Definitely take something. Well, I mean, these days everybody has a phone. Definitely record any interaction with ICE. If you bring someone with you who will interact you or who will record your interaction with ICE of any sort. That is my advice when it comes to the possible ICE presence at the voting booths or the polls, because that's one way to counter them. Bring someone with you, have that someone have a recording device, and have a document so that we will not be able to be pulled away. Present the document on the spot. What is like, I'm not sure what other advice I can give. As to the seizing of the ballots, I definitely agree that this will be used to both cast doubt on the upcoming midterm election, but as well it's going to be weaponized to try to prosecute the perceived parties at fault for stealing the 2022 election. That is going to be a thing. So we are looking forward to a very tumultuous period. All I can say is, as a person that lives in Poland, Godspeed, fingers crossed, and I hope that the worst case scenario will not come to pass, which I am always very much prepared for the worst to come, especially since as of the last few years, all that I've been served is the worst coming to pass. So we'll see. I definitely think that this was worth covering. I definitely think that this is worth talking about. I definitely think that we should keep monitoring this particular situation